Their journey may have started in different places, but all roads lead to Casper. This weekend, 16 teams converge on the Oil City in hopes of being one of 4 to have that one moment that they, their families, their schools, and their towns will never forget. It's March Madness in the Cowboy State. This is the Wyoming Prep Podcast 4A, 3A Basketball State Tournament Preview presented by MyLocalRadio.com.
Well, welcome in. Jake Hibbard joined alongside Elan, Olliff. Elan, glad to have you with me tonight as we break down the upcoming state playoffs with the 4A, 3A MyLocalRadio.com State Preview Show.
Thanks for having me, Jake. This is going to be a great night.
Well, so tonight we'll hear from a laundry list of Wyoming sports players. We're going to hear from Keith Kelly of KFBC, CBS Sports Radio out of Cheyenne, and then a little bit later on in the hour, Steve Core of the radio network will be joining us probably around 8 o'clock is the plan there. We've got Allison Fertig on. We should have Rory Williams on shortly. Rory is the head coach of the Thunder Basin Bolts in just their 3rd year of existence, already making a regional run, going in as a number 1 seed. We'll have all that, but first things first, it's time to start revealing our brackets for the 3A and 4A boys. These brackets are brought to you by WyoPreps.com, the top website dedicated to all Wyoming high school athletics. Starting with Elan, we can take a look at what you got. Elan, the 3A boys, what were you thinking on these ones?
Well, what I'm thinking is, looking at the 3A boys, it looks like we're going to see a collision course between Lander and Worland. And just by the sheer fact that Worland is the stronger shooting team, it shows on the stats. It's in favor of Worland, 70 points per game, 64 for Lander Valley.
Big offense.
Yeah. So you just kind of get the feeling that shooting, I know there's been some questions about whether shooting can carry over in the state tournament because of the nerves, because of the fact that you're playing at the event center. But Worland just shoots the lights off the place, and they do it consistently.
Yeah, so that's what you got in your championship round. But looking at these first-round matchups, breaking them down really quickly, run through what you got.
Well, when it comes to that first matchup of the day, we got Torrington versus Big Piney. And, you know, Big Piney's just been an impressive team all season. And then you've got, sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing that, Worland versus Buffalo.
Yeah, Worland-Buffalo on the other side.
Yep.
That's the 1-4 in that top end of the bracket.
And again, Worland has just been great. They know how to shoot the lights out of a gym. Lander Valley against
that's a Wheatland,
sorry. They just, again, they're one of those teams that really own the post and dominate it, and I think that they'll be doing exactly that and just kind of cruise through this tournament. And then in the next matchup, you've got
Rollins-Powell, and you got Rollins moving along in that one. And then in the semifinal matchups, you've got Lander versus Rollins, Worland versus Big Piney. 3 of those teams from the west side, and you're basically saying the west is going to play through. Rollins, despite being the top team, not going to have what it takes to get through Lander Valley.
Well, we've seen it all year. It looks like the year of the Lander Valley Worland trilogy is what we've had, and I think we're going to get a quadrilogy out of it.
Quadrilogy. All right, let's move over to my brackets on those 3A boys. Not a whole lot of changes. I was right with you, Elan. I think Worland versus Buffalo. Buffalo kind of faltered a little bit in those regional playoffs. They're a good team. They're a state runner-up in football, and those athletes mostly carry over. But I've got Worland because they have been the cream of the crop at 3A basketball throughout the year. Just one loss on the season, that coming on the final day of the year. Torrington, Big Piney. Big Piney eliminated Mountain View, and that says something. To beat a number 1 team in an elimination game and get into state, Big Piney is solid. They're the most efficient offense in the 3A. And then at Lander Valley versus Wheatland, hey, Wheatland faltered. They got themselves on desirable seed. And there's a few of those in these state tournaments, but that's one of them. So they're going to fall as a very good number 3 seed from the East. Wheatland's been toward the top all year, but Lander's going to get through. And then Rollins, hey, they keep winning games, and I think they win against Powell. In the semifinals, basically what you were thinking, Elan. Big Piney hasn't been able to get over the hump against Worland. They fought valiantly against Lander Valley in the semifinals. I think they'll fight a lot against Worland too, but just not quite enough firepower, I don't think, to keep up with. If they are going to get past, they're going to have to slow the possession down a little bit and keep Worland off of those 3-pointers. And then in the finals, I've got Worland winning over Lander Valley just because I saw that matchup in person on Saturday. If Worland's hitting shots, they're going to win. If Lander can get a little bit of an advantage down low, get some turnovers, and get some threes to fall of their own, because they're a good 3-point shooting team, then they've got a chance in that one. Let's jump over to the 4A boys. Elan, you got Star Valley and Kelly Walsh in the finals. Defend yourself.
Well, the first matchup, Kelly Walsh and East, I think it's going to come down to a matchup of coaches at that point. I mean, the athleticism you would definitely put in the way of East, but Kelly Walsh has Randy Roden, and you and I both know when Roden has time to prepare for an opponent, that team can be absolute gangbusters. In the second round, Thunder Basin and Green River. I've seen Green River in person a few times. I've seen Thunder Basin once, and I was impressed with Thunder Basin. We'll talk with Coach Rory Williams
shortly.
Very shortly, actually. Yeah. And that team knows how to shoot the lights out of a gymnasium. I expect to see them coming out of Casper College victorious. I'm going to save that a third matchup for last. Star Valley and Campbell County. It's definitely – Star Valley has won 11 games in a row, and when you look at them, they just look like a team that refuses to lose right now, and I think that carries over throughout the tournament. Evanston and Sheridan, I do have the Red Devils taking that one because I like the matchup.
And you're the voice of the Red Devils. Let's get that out of the way.
We do have to get. You know, you could call it a homer pick, but I've also spoken with the coach. I've also spoken with the coaches and with the players, and they've got a plan, and I like that plan.
Well, just like the 2006 debate of Conrad Burns and John Tester, we've got a plan, and we're not going to tell you, John, because you'll just go out and blow it. But you've got Sheridan losing to Evanston, and then Evanston versus Star Valley. That clearly opens up the path, if that's what happens, for Star Valley to go into the state title, a team that Star Valley is very efficient right now. Kelly Walsh versus Thunder Basin, we'll have to get back to that one a little bit later, but you've got Kelly Walsh winning that one. And the reason for that is you think Thunder Basin might go cold at the event center?
I think they could go cold at the event center. This is the first time they've ever played a state tournament game at the event center. The depth perception is different when you're not shooting against a basket right against the back wall. And again, I think Coach Roden, he's a great coach, and it's not going to be a matchup of coaching, but you just wonder how long can Thunder Basin stay this hot.
Take a look at my brackets. I've got completely different. I've got actually Cheyenne East avenging their previous regional first-round loss. Look, I watched that game when they took down Central. They looked like maybe that loss came at just the right time. They don't have favorable seeding necessarily. They get a good Kelly Walsh team, but I like what they've got going. It sounds like we'll have to get back to that in just a second. We may have Coach Roden on the line right now. And, or excuse me, not Coach Roden, Coach Rory Williams for the Thunder Basin Bolts. Coach Rory, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
I'm fantastic. Hey, so we were just talking about these brackets, breaking them down as we're looking at what you've got. And you really did a service for yourself this weekend, getting that number one spot, and that included a upset in the semifinals over Cheyenne Central, a team that you hung with the first time but weren't able to get over the hump. How did your team do it this time?
You know, I thought obviously we got off to a way better start. I think, you know, the first time we played them, a month ago, a few weeks ago. I think it was 19-3 at the end of the first quarter, and we never really got off to a good start, you know, and so it was just obviously an uphill battle. And, you know, last weekend we got off to a much better start. We were able to hit some shots early. I know they went on a big run, you know, on us in the second quarter and kind of went into halftime with a lot of momentum. I mean, I think they ended the second quarter on a 15-4 run or something like that. So we kind of had to lick our wounds at halftime and just kind of regroup. And, you know, the third quarter was obviously big. I think we were 7 for 8 from the three-pointers and got to the basket a couple times. I think we put up 27 points in that third quarter and were able to put some stops on top of those. And obviously, you know, going into the fourth quarter with the 10-point lead, we were able to hang on with, you know, just a really, really talented team. You know, I think we played really good. I don't think they played their best basketball. It was a good high school basketball game. We were just fortunate to come up on top.
I got one more follow-up question for that. Watching that contest, of course, the story of Thunder Basin all year is don't worry about getting a guy down in the post because they're just you guys are going to shoot all the way around the perimeter. And you had Lawson Lovering at the top trying to direct traffic. How did this game go as opposed to the last one? Was it just a matter of change of you guys hitting more shots than the other team, or was there any adjustments?
You know, I think so. I mean, obviously, when you make 14 threes a game and you shoot close to 40 or whatever it is now, I don't even know what it is now. And
a lot.
I think that game, it's a lot. You know, I don't even think we shot 20%, and that's in our own gym. And we liked our looks. They weren't great looks. They were good looks. So I think our looks were a lot different last weekend. You know, I thought we had a couple little things that we did differently.
And did we lose Rory for a second there? Oh, he's got him back there. Okay. Oh.
And take advantage of some mismatches. But, you know, for the most part, some shots. And obviously, when you make shots, that helps as well. And we were able to get stops and get the ball in transition. So, we kind of put both those things together, and it just ended up to be a pretty good night.
Coach Williams, Thunder Basin is a fairly young team in the scope of Wyoming State basketball.
Right. Right.
You guys win your first regional tournament. You do it at home, and you do it in a double overtime masterpiece against Sheridan. Final score 66-61. What was it like to kind of coach this group of guys through that type of game?
It was really fun. I mean, obviously they were on a high just from the night before, and being able to qualify, for their state first, state tournament. And so really had a lot of momentum and confidence going into that game. And, and we'd beat Sheridan just a couple weeks before, I think 65-55 in our own gym. So, we know them, we know what they like to do. We know their strengths, and they know ours. And it was just a good high school basketball game. It was good for our seniors to win their last game, especially against, Sheridan, who, you talk about Hamilton and Blaine Allen, those guys lost, their last football game to those guys. So it was just a good game. I mean, it was a possession game. There's a lot of great shot making towards the very end. Sam and Gus did their thing, and we were just able to, kind of hit some timely threes at the end, made enough free throws in the second overtime to get over the hump.
Coach Rory Williams joining us, Thunder Basin Bolts head coach and regional champions. 65% of your shots that get thrown up by your team are from beyond the arc, and you got that run and gun, long range style. Is that personnel driven, or is that your brand of basketball?
A little bit of both. We're not very tall. Blaine Allen's our tallest guy, I think 6'3", 6'3 and a half. And, as a sophomore and junior, he was more of a perimeter guy for us, and he still is. Obviously, defensively, he's had to change his ways a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we usually got 5 guys on the floor at all times that can really shoot it and shoot it efficiently. And that's probably the key word for us is efficiently. We don't let anybody just come in and jack it. They have to prove to us that they can shoot it at a high rate. And if you look at our stats, most of them do shoot it pretty well. I think everybody's above 33%, which is, really, really good at the high school level for shooting as many threes as we do. So, we want to play to our kids' strengths, but at the same time, I kind of played like that. I played college for Coach McDermott, who now coaches Creighton, and you go look at that team, they're very similar. And so we want to get out and run. We want to get high percentage shots. And, normally it's either a wide open 3 or a wide open layup. And that's why we're able to shoot it at a high rate most of the time.
Coach Williams, you guys have Green River tomorrow in the first round. They've got a dynamic sophomore in Dylan Taylor, as well as post play from Drew Gibson. What are some things that you guys have noticed about Green River that you guys have been preparing for this opening round matchup?
They're feisty. I think they're similar to us with their height. The Taylor kid does really well. We were able to play them just a couple weeks after Christmas. They came down to our place, and so it was a 6-point game at halftime, and I think we ended up getting them by 24, 25. But nothing really crazy happened until the beginning of the fourth quarter. So we respect them highly. Coach Ivy does a great job with that group. This is the second year now in a row where they've qualified for a state tournament after a 9-year absence. And so, they're going to be confident, and, they're able to switch a lot of screens just because they're kind of the same height, all the way around. And, they got great skilled guys, and they know exactly what they want to do offensively, and defensively, they just get after it. So, we respect them a ton, and, can't wait to play them tomorrow at 1:30.
Coach, you ever get your team compared to the Houston Rockets, especially now that they've gone all in on the small ball?
Yeah, we just call it really small ball.
Yeah.
On our end. Yeah, I mean,
hey,
we do.
Your post is about as big as the Houston Rockets post.
What's that?
Your post is about as big as the Houston Rockets post at this point.
I know. Yeah, it's really fun to watch when it works. And we practice it day in and day out. I think hopefully the biggest thing that we're probably different from the Rockets is we're a little bit more unselfish. But you look at our stats. Like I said, our scoring is balanced. All the guys that shoot all those threes, it's pretty balanced. There's not really a guy that takes a ton more than the other. And so that's what's fun to watch and fun to be a part of, is just the unselfishness and the trust, because that style of basketball that we're playing right now, it doesn't work if the trust isn't there. And so that's what's fun to appreciate with these young guys.
Yeah, you play unselfish ball, and you know what else you guys do? You play defense, and I appreciate that. It is a fun defense to watch. Coach Rory Williams of the Thunder Basin Bolts in action tomorrow. What time's your game? Let's take a quick look at that. Tomorrow you're in action at 1:30 p.m. Good luck, Coach, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.
And that's Coach Rory Williams again of the Thunder Basin Bolts. Now let's run through my brackets right before we head to break here. I'd like to mention we're here at the Come On In of Casper, and a beautiful setup. We got a fireplace up in front of us, but we'll talk. We aren't going to be able to get Coulter Patterson on today. He's got some prior engagements he got to go to. He's the GM there, but awesome guy. He gave us this setup today. Before we head to break, though, the 4A bracket, as I see it playing out, I've got East beating Kelly Walsh tomorrow. Elan, you went opposite of that. Yep. I've got Thunder Basin beating Green River. You stuck with that one. I've got Sheridan over Evanston. I don't have the upset. I've got an upset when we come back after the break that we can talk about, and I've got no problem. These are our brackets. We're picking the upsets. If you see it, I don't have that one, and my upset is Campbell County defeating Star Valley. I think Luke Ladkey and all of the Ladkeys, the ghosts of Ladkey's past, come out to play in this state tournament. I've got Sheridan versus East in the championship, and you know what? I'm going against the narrative that East can't perform in the playoffs. I'm saying they didn't in the regionals, but they got through and got third place. The scare is over, and the athleticism and the good basketball play of East that we saw throughout the regular season comes through in the state tournament. That's my champions.
And let me just preface my bracket with, I hope I'm wrong. Like, my heart wants to say Evanston takes the whole thing.
Of course, yeah.
But this is a statewide show, and it's one of those deals where it's like, my biggest question with the Evanston Star Valley matchup is that I have in my bracket is how much left is going to be in the tank, because if they're going to beat Sheridan, it's going to be a shootout.
All right, we will head to break here, and when we come back, we will look at our girls' brackets and then have Allison Fertig of the Douglas Bearcats joining us. This is the 3A, 4A State Preview, the Wyoming Prep Podcast, live from the Come On In of Casper on mylocalradio.com, KNY 99.1 FM in the Evanston listening area.
It's human nature to think the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That's not always true, especially when it comes to buying vehicles. This is Dennis Lynch, General Manager at Auto Farm Chevrolet. Dealerships pay the same price for new vehicles across America. The fact is, the best deals are right here, in your own backyard. The difference is that our employees are your neighbors, people you can trust. Please visit us first, Auto Farm Chevrolet. We are your community-driven dealer.
The best place to stay when you're in Casper, Wyoming is the Come On In Hotel and Suites. This beautiful log hotel offers 5 hot tubs, 1 pool, a fitness center, and fabulous indoor atrium. Offering jacuzzi and fireplace suites, the guest rooms are comfortable and relaxing. Plus, every stay includes a delicious extended continental breakfast. Whenever you're in Casper, stay at the best place. Come On In Hotel and Suites. Come on in today. Come On In Hotel and Suites, Casper.
It's the Wyoming Prep Podcast.
Welcome back to the Come On In of Casper, where Elan, Olliff, and myself, Jake Hibbard, are joining you for the next about 75 minutes now here to break down tomorrow's 3A, 4A state championships beginning here at the Casper Event Center and Casper College. Well, before the break, we talked about the boys' brackets. Elan, how about we take a look at the girls' side? I'm going to start with mine this time on the 3A girls. And again, these brackets brought to you by wyopreps.com, and appreciate WyoPreps for giving us a shout out on the website as well. First round in the 3A girls, I've got Lyman beating Newcastle in the first round. Douglas taking care of Pinedale. Pinedale, though, good story, getting into the state tournament, upsetting, who was that? Warland, the number 1 seed from the Northwest Conference, goes down 2 nights in a row, and Pinedale makes it into the state playoffs for the first time. in, I believe, 20 or 21 years. I was talking to Duke Dance of SVI Media on my show this morning about that one. On the bottom half of the bracket, I went back and forth on this one. I actually originally had Lander Valley in, and then I watched more tape, and I decided I liked the way that Rollins came out and played, albeit in the first half. I liked the way they came out and played against Douglas in that regional championship game, so I switched it around, and I've got Rollins advancing onto the semifinals against Mountain View. Now, Mountain View against Wheatland. I think Wheatland, they've got a good score. She's averaging about 18 points a game, and that could give them a little bit of trouble. I think Mountain View's disciplined defense is going to get a few too many turnovers for Wheatland to be able to handle, and I like the efficient shooting. Mountain View, outside of Douglas, the most efficient 3A shooting team in the league. Rollins versus Mountain View, go back and forth on that one. It could go either way. At the moment, I picked Mountain View. On the other side, I've got Lyman and Douglas winning that one. And for a third straight time in my championship, I have Douglas coming away as the titleist. We'll talk a little bit about that after the break, about, if there are any contenders, who can they be? But right now, I've got Douglas as it. Elan, take it away on the 3A girls.
I think we are. I just literally saw no changes. I saw no changes, and I repeat exactly what you say. Lyman has got just seems to have that drive this year that they're
Douglas?
going to. No, I'm talking about the first matchup.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So Lyman, I think, is definitely poised to get into that third place game. Again, Buffalo is they've got a tough matchup against Pinedale. But Buffalo just seems like they're
Douglas.
Excuse me. They're just honestly going to be
one loss.
We all
on
know
the
it.
season. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
we all know
a
what.
Good team.
Yeah, we all know what they can put out there. Lander Valley looks really good. I think the one disagreement we have is
Rollins.
Lander Rollins, actually.
Yep.
And I went back and forth on that too, because Rollins is packed with athletes. They just won the volleyball title last year.
Yep.
But I don't know. Lander Valley just seems to put something on the floor that just seems special to me. And then when you go Mountain View, again, exactly the defense is what's going to get them that far. In the semifinals, of course, Douglas over Lyman. We can talk about why that is later on. And then Mountain View, again, that defense is going to get there. And it just feels like it's always been meant to be this way since the beginning of the season, Mountain View and Douglas.
Well, we'll see exactly how that plays out. Over to the girls' side, Elan, take a quick look at your bracket as you have Central losing to Thunder Basin in the finals.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that Central's got a pretty favorable matchup going forward. I know that they won the region, and Thunder Basin lost and were actually, I believe, upset by Central. But the fact of the matter is that Thunder Basin has been poised to do this all year. I remember being in that gym at the beginning of the year, and everybody was saying, this is the team to beat. Sure enough, they go into Central and East and take care of business. They were the number one team after that.
I believe that everyone was me telling you that one.
Well, no, I heard it from broadcasters in Gillette from other places as well at the Remax Invitational. But you look at their Central's first matchup against Green River. Green River is, and I'll be very interested to talk to Steve about this, they were a team that I genuinely believe that could be playing on Saturday night. And then we saw what happened at regionals.
Bad seeding.
Yeah.
Bad seeding.
Yeah, and they're tragically going to go out in the first round, I believe. And then you look at Kelly Walsh. I think they take care of their opponent moving on. But then I think it stops right there, because it really does feel like it's going to be Central and Thunder Basin just by the way the brackets have lined out.
I've got a little bit of different. Actually, I've got a lot of difference. And I mentioned I have an upset and a big one here. I know that they lost Megan Counts, and I'll be interested to talk to Steve Core on this one. And this is an upset that I picked. This is an upset. This is a
big
Cinderella run. And the reason is that Green River has been a legitimate title contender from wire to wire until regionals, and then they set themselves up with an unfavorable matchup. As you can see if you're watching here, I've got Central losing to Green River in the first round of the playoffs, and we'll get back to that in a second because I've got them going a ways. I've got Natrona beating Kelly Walsh. They beat them the first time in the Peach Basket. Sure, it took a great shot, but I like what Natrona offers, and I think that program's has experienced a resurgence after losing their coach a couple of years ago. Thunder Basin over Rock Springs. I think Rock Springs and Brenley Jenkins, Aislinn Pasolar can give them a run, but Thunder Basin goes on to the semifinals. And then I've got East over Star Valley. Good story by Star Valley with a first-year coach in girls basketball, period, getting a berth into state, and just two players turning over from last year's team. In the semifinals, I've got East taking care of Thunder Basin. I like the way they came back on a fantastic defensive Central in the regional championship game. I picked that. I was watching that one, and I like the way East is trending right now. I think they're getting deeper as the year goes on, so I've got them beating Thunder Basin. And then Green River versus Natrona, I've got Green River into the title, East winning it. Ultimately, Green River, the reason I've got them getting the win in first round is because I wanted an upset, and I think that if there's a big one on the board that can happen, Green River is a talented team. They're a tenacious defensive team. They play a similar style to Central, and if they can get it done, then they could go a long way. So that's my look here at the brackets here is, having some fun with that one. I'll admit that one. It's a little bit of fun that I'm having there. So now taking a look off of the brackets and back into here. We're joined now by Allison Fertig of the Douglas Bearcats. Allison, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Hey, Allison, you are the two-time state champions, trying to go for a third one, and I was talking to you a little bit in the weeks leading up about what sort of pressure comes with that. You guys were able to get it done in regionals, but has your team felt the pressure this year, or are you just rolling on and keeping on?
We are just keeping on, but we know that we can make history because it'll be the first time that our school program has done a 3-time state championship of basketball. So we have that pressure, but I think we're just in the mindset of we've done it all year. We can do it this weekend.
You had a tough contest against Rollins. Credit to Rollins for keeping it close in that first half. Ultimately, you win by 20. How were you able to pull away from Rollins in those third and fourth quarters?
Well, after our halftime talk, Coach Helmbolt, he just calmed us down, and he told us that we didn't work hard all year to come here to lose, and it just gave us that instinct to keep pushing and fighting and play our game and not be scared because they're just being a little more physical. He wanted us to play through that, and that's what got us going, I think.
Allison, you mentioned it earlier that this would be the first time that Douglas would have 3 state titles in basketball. When you won during your sophomore year, if we were to tell you that you would be in a position to do that, what would you have said?
I would have thought we might have had a chance, but I would have never seen it come to us. We're just so close, and with all of our hard work, it makes it possible every single time we get in the gym because we just work harder to get this goal.
Allison, I think I've got you with in your career in high school. Just a couple of losses. Does losing ever get boring, or are you okay keeping on with that one? Or excuse me, does winning? I'm so sorry, my goodness. No, does winning ever get boring?
It never gets boring, but I feel like those couple losses we do have against the big school from Linwood, it keeps us humble and knows that there are still teams out there that are better than us, and we can always get better.
Elan, you got something there?
Yeah, if you guys are able to come in to here, what is it like to kind of have that target on your back? Is it something you guys are used to by now, or is it still one of those things where you guys kind of feel like you need to be on your toes a little bit?
We never know what we'll see during state because teams bring their best game, but sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's totally fine.
No, so I was watching some of your tape of the championship game, the semifinals games. You're shooting 72% on the year. Obviously, that's awesome. You've been able to up your points per game average by about 9-10 points, rebounding, staying at 12. Something I noticed is you take the little things in basketball seriously, like screens. How was that instilled on you? Was that coming from coaches or someone else as you were learning to play basketball when you were younger?
I would say just all coaches over the years because, you always want to score yourself, but it feels great when you can set up a screen during a play or something and get your teammates to score because you know that you helped them get to that position to score.
You got some great players around you, too. How about that super junior class? What's it like to play with a point guard like Jocelyn Igo?
It's awesome to have, because I grew up playing basketball with her, so it's awesome to have someone who knows knows you like the back of their hand when you're playing. And she's just an awesome communicator out there on the floor, and she's great at seeing the whole floor and getting anyone open so they can score.
Allison, you've been the go-to player for Douglas for the last 3 years. This is your last year, and then, last 2 years, excuse me. After this year, it'll be it. What do Douglas fans have to look forward to in the future besides that junior class that Jake was talking about with Igo? Who are some other players that they should be excited about?
Well, she'll be back for number one. She's a junior.
Oh, wow. Sorry, I thought
so
you
you're
were
coming
senior.
back. No,
wow.
she's not going
I got
anywhere.
that wrong. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm coming back, but our sophomore class has lots of potential. You have Allie and Chloe. They just keep getting better every year, and you can see those improvements. And so I think they'll be very successful.
Well, you committed earlier in the year, did an early commit to the University of Wyoming, and you played against a girl who's sitting the bench and getting a lot of good minutes for this team this year for the Cowgirls in Lyman's McKinley Bradshaw. How much of seeing the way that Wyoming's trying to recruit some local players, Jay Johnson being another one getting some time, what is it? What was it about the University of Wyoming that made you want to be a Cowpoke?
I just wanted like the feeling of, hometown fans or like home state fans. It's like if I went to a different state, you'd be like a good player, but you wouldn't have that experience and just support from your like home teams and people you've played against. And
you get like obviously you'll get more chances for your family to come out and see you, but it really does feel like it's just like we're here to bring the whole state tournament into one in this show because we love everyone and all these teams around the state. Wyoming really is that university. Obviously it's the only one, but that may lead to more of a community feel that even if you're in Laramie, it still feels like home. Is that what you got?
Yeah, because like I grew up in Wyoming, so I want to represent Wyoming as well.
Well, Allison, thanks so much for joining us. Parting shot, though, you've got a couple of tough matchups coming up against teams that you really haven't seen this year. You've seen some teams here and there. You saw all those teams in regionals. It was certainly a battle. Where is the mindset of your teams? You guys are doing the team dinner, I understand. I think maybe right now. What are you guys up to? What's the mood of the team as you get ready to come over to Casper tomorrow?
We're just all excited. Like we just got done eating steak and crab, and they're
wow.
just all excited and happy, full bellies,
Where was our invites to that dinner?
Hey, we weren't on the team.
We're just ready to go.
That's good to hear. Allison Fertig, Gatorade Player of the Year, and congratulations on that as well, too. Future Cowpoke and Douglas Jr. getting ready for 3 more days of the high school season. I'm sure you're excited for that. Thanks so much, and we'll see you out on the court tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's Allison Fertig of the Douglas Bearcats. Elan, she is a junior. That's incredible, though, isn't it? She's shooting 72%. She's leading her team in scoring for the 3rd straight year. And on top of that, first 2 years, about 13 points per game, up to, I think, 24 or 23 right now, and 12, 13 rebounds, 5 blocks per game as well.
I don't know how I missed that, but when you look at her stats, it's playing like someone who is ready for that next level. And the fact she's already committed, she's got the deal done with Wyoming tells you how mature and how ahead she is of the rest of her class.
I got to say, I love what Wyoming Cowgirls basketball is doing for fans like me who watch these players grow up, and you see the best that Wyoming has to offer. We saw players like Kaylee Johnson go to Stanford. Good for her. Excellent school. That was Jay's older cousin. Lost my word there for a second. We saw Robbie Ryan go to the University of Arizona State University. She was a next-level talent. It's great to see some of these girls be able to stay in the state, like McKinley Bradshaw. It's been fun to watch her play. It's fun to watch Jay Johnson, who worked her butt off at Casper College for 2 years to get a Division I offer at the University of Wyoming, and now Allison will join them a little bit later. She'll miss out on Jay, as Jay's going to be a senior next year, but she'll get to play with McKinley, and I love watching that team because it makes it a hometown team for me, just like Craig Bull and the Wyoming Cowboys football program. I see guys that I was calling games for on Friday or covering them all the time when they're out there.
And I'll be completely transparent here. This is my first year covering the state, and one thing that I've learned very quickly is that this state really is special in the way that it almost feels like its own country. It has its own pride. It has its own culture. It has everything that makes just a program and a community great.
Well, we'll take a break now and come back. We will take a little dive into some 3A issues, and then we'll have Keith Kelly of KFBC Radio. This is the 3A 4A State Preview Show on MyLocalRadio.com, part of the Wyoming Prep Podcast.
The central and midwestern U.S. averages more than 850 tornadoes each year. And lately, the number of floods has been rising in the region, too. So chances are, there will be more twisters and floods near here again. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are, you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has all the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
When you're looking for one location that is centrally located in Wyoming to host a business meeting or corporate retreat, always consider the Come On In Hotel and Suites in Casper first. With meeting ways we can help make your event a success. Come On In Hotel and Suites in Casper. Call 307-472-6300.
This is the Wyoming Prep Podcast on the radio.
From lack of self-control.
Back here on the Wyoming Prep Podcast on the radio and on location at the Come On In of Casper. If you haven't been here, you got to check it out. Rooms are all booked and for good reason for this weekend. It's like stepping into a resort. Jake Hibbard joined alongside Elan, Olliff. You got settled in. You're excited to be here and for a full weekend of state basketball.
It's going to be great. It really is. It said March Madness in the Cowboy State during the intro, and that is exactly what it is. And it really started last weekend when you think about it, but we'll talk about that more later.
Well, now that we have a little bit of time to stop and breathe for a second, I'd like to talk a little bit about some 3A storylines. And namely, we're going to start with the girls' side. And we just talked with Allison Fertig of the Douglas Bearcats. The question is, can anyone beat Douglas? They're the preeminent favorites. They've won 2 in a row. They're going for a third one. And take a quick look back at those matchups then. They've got a good path because when a team is that good and that loaded, it's not just Allison Fertig. They lost a very fine player last year in Hayden Rhodes, and that team still has the talent to continue to reload and just recharge. But there's other teams in this tournament, and you've got to always look at Central last week. They were the favorites in the state. They're not even at the state tournament because on any given night and any given 2 nights, you can lose 2 games. So now I want to take a look at making the detective case. If anyone can beat Douglas, who and what is the case? And my first candidate is a semifinal matchup, Elan, Lyman. And I'd like to make a case for Lyman because that's one of the teams that they could end up playing. You gave me a surprised look right here.
I'm a little bit surprised. I've only got one team that can beat him too, and it's not Lyman.
Okay.
So let's hear your case.
I put together, I think, 3 teams. I was putting together a case for a few teams. All right, here's the first part. When they would meet, the state semifinals. What's my case for them? Well, Lyman was in the state title last year to Douglas. Now, that was basically a different team. However, there were a couple of players who saw some time. Bryce Hansen saw some time. Mandy Ayer did as well. So they're not going to be scared. And more of those players were on the bench. They're not going to be scared by being at the event center, by being in just a different environment. That's not going to rattle them here. However, shooting is going to be a disparity. Look, Lyman is not the shooting team that Douglas is. There's no question about it. Douglas holds a big advantage over everyone. And if they can get it down low to Allison Fertig, it's game over. However, nobody defends and extends the perimeter better than Lyman defensively. And if you're going to get someone that's going to beat Douglas, you need a defense that can cover sideline to sideline, both in the full court and in the half-court setups. And that's where I think Lyman has a case. They've not been worried about style points this season. They've been worried about getting the job done, and they hang their hat on defense. So that's my case for Lyman. You had a team there?
I've got one team, and I think I see it on your paper as well, so we might as well kind of, I guess, joint tackle it. I've got Mountain View.
Yeah.
I think Mountain View, when you look at the stats going into the state tournament, Mountain View, I think if they do it, they'd meet in the state championship. They have to turn it into kind of a bit of a messy game where they get to the free throw line consistently. They're shooting 60% as a team. And I think that is the way that you do it. If you can try to get maybe Allison Fertig or some of their other big players in foul trouble, then I think you can see Mountain View try to pull away if they take advantage of stuff at the foul line.
Well, here's the thing: is Mountain View is the only team in the stratosphere as far as shooting percentage that, as is Douglas, and even they don't necessarily match up. My case for Mountain View is pretty similar. That's really that only team that can stay shooting with them. I think that was kind of your point. Haley Stevens is a legitimate basketball talent. She can create shots. Bailey Henstra gives them a 6-foot presence, and granted, she would need to have the game of her life, but just being in the stratosphere, 6 foot to 6'4". I've seen her play tougher defense in some games than others, but I know she is capable of tough defense. You're going to need a big to guard the 6'4" Fertig, and Mountain View may have a chance with that. Also, Mountain View's been very pesky on the ball defensively, and they do not turn the ball over.
And you're also going to need a big game from your guard play. You look at the three-point percentage for Douglas and compare it to Mountain View. Mountain View's shooting almost 30% from outside the arc. Douglas, 20.
Yeah, and my other case is Rollins, strictly because they've got athletes. They hung with them for a half. Can they finish that out? Remains to be seen. But those are my three cases. Now let's move on to the boys' side. Worland versus Lander. Is there anyone you can see upsetting them along the ways to get there?
I don't think so. Just because the fact that Worland has been pretty much the unofficial consensus number one since the beginning of the season. I saw them in person back in the early part of the season at the Flaming Gorge Classic, and they were impressive to me then. So the fact that they've been able to carry this momentum out throughout the season, you also look at Worland. They are the number one offense. They're scoring an average of 70 points per game. That's Thunder Basin numbers. But we also have seen Worland come to the state tournament before and win state championships with that same strategy.
I've got two teams that could do it. Rollins could upset Lander just because Rollins has been upsetting teams all year long. I saw him do it to Mountain View. And Big Piney is going to need to slow the pace down, but there is not a more efficient or smart basketball team at the 3A level. And I'm not saying that I'd pick it, but you've always got a chance. I mean, if we've learned anything from regionals, there is always a chance.
Right.
So I can't rule it out. But, yeah, no, certainly Worland and Lander Valley. And that's a matchup a lot of people want because they've seen it. Even though they've seen it 3 times, it's been a classic every single one.
And that's the kind of matchups that the fans want for state title, to be honest. I mean,
you want who seems to be the best team.
Exactly. And that's what some people have some problems with that 4A bracket
with that 4A
one, because a lot of people were hoping we would get something along the lines of an East Central matchup, and they got it in a very high pressure situation. However, that's much earlier, and I'm sure we can talk about that East Regional tournament till the cows come home. And it's just, I don't know. It's one of those deals where that's what people want, and so I think that's what people are hoping for.
Well, yeah, you want to see the best teams, and you mentioned it, and we'll get into it in just a second right now as we welcome on a guy who was at those games where Cheyenne Central lost out to. Keith Kelly of KFBC Radio joining us now. Also give that CBS Sports Radio shout out there. Keith, we were just talking about it. We were talking about 3A boys basketball, but onto the 4A side, saying that Lander, Worland, that's the matchup you want because that seems to be the best two teams. One of the teams that most people consider the best won't even be at this tournament. What is the reaction a few days out of that in Cheyenne?
I guess it depends on who you ask with the Central East rivalry. I think most people feel like it's just an unfortunate situation that's the word I've been using. It's unfortunate. There are a few people that are talking about the format and all that because we all know in 4A you used to get if you were a top 2 seed, you got the automatic trip to state, and that changed when they went to 8-team regions, which everybody knows that. So I mean, there's nothing there. The players were very disappointed, but if you're on social media and you see some of the players posting pictures and stuff of getting back in the gym the next day, that's kind of what's going on. I think it's unfortunate that we're not going to see probably, and I'm sure you guys would agree, the best team in the state. Not there. They just picked the wrong time to play their 2 worst games, and it was crazy. It was such a crazy scene in that Thunder Basin game in that third quarter, because if Central was up 12 points in that third quarter, and Thunder Basin went nuts, hit 7 threes in that third quarter, outscored them 27-9, and Central never got up after that. They got knocked down, and then East took them out the next day. It was just an insane scene.
I've heard a lot of stuff about is there a need for change, and this is what happens when something dramatic takes place, like Mountain View, Worland on the 3A girls and boys side and number 1 going down. That was a little bit of ripples, but when you have a team like Central, that will get the conversation talking. Do we need redistricting? Does it need to go back to north versus south? Should there be automatic bids? And in Cheyenne, as you mentioned, it's split because coming down to the last day, it was East versus Central, and somehow, I think I tweeted out, I can't believe it. It almost made me sick to think one of those teams wasn't going to get the opportunity to play their way back into state. What's your take? Should we stick to what we have? Should we switch to something else? Do you think anything will happen?
I've had the 3 coaches that made it to state from Cheyenne on my talk show the last 3 days, and they were all giving kind of the politically correct answer. Somebody above my pay grade makes those decisions. But Glenn Kirkbride was talked about it the most, about some of the scenarios, but they never really said yay or nay on the format. They just are wanting to get the 8 best teams in the state tournament. And I don't think we have that. We don't have that this year.
No.
And that's too bad, but that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. And I think there is definitely conference inequity in the sides of the state. I don't know how you do it unless you just bracket a 16-team bracket, and the first round of a quote-unquote postseason, I don't even know if you call it the state tournament, the first round of the postseason is you play your way into the state tournament, and I think you get your 8 best teams that way. But who knows? What if you get an upset there? I mean, you get an upset there, and you're stuck in the same boat. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that there's conference inequality, and the east side is way stronger than the west right now, and it was just unfortunate. These things happen, and it makes it fun. I mean, but for those Central kids, I really feel bad, especially for those seniors. But would you want to play Central next year after this?
Absolutely
not. They return everybody. Would you want to play them? I wouldn't.
No. Keith Kelly with KFBC Radio out of Cheyenne. Elan, I'll let you get in right now. I just want to play the devil's advocate really quickly, and then I'll throw it over to you. We do have upsets happen in the NCAA tournament all the time. So when you come down to the Final Four, do we have the best teams in? A lot of times the answer is probably no. Elan, I'll kick it over.
You mentioned that Thunder Basin hit 7 threes in that third quarter, and that's how they were able to pull it off. How did East pull off the upset over Central?
Man, they came out and they were on fire, and it was funny. I mean, nothing will ever top the Story Gym experience this year when it was 1 versus 2 both times. But I think Gillette folks were in there, were intrigued about this matchup. Plus, you had indoor state track and field, and there were a lot of students that were there from East and Central, and the atmosphere was crazy, great in there. Again, not like Story Gym because you can fit 3,500 people in there, so it wasn't quite like that. But East came out in a 2-3 zone and dared Central to hit 3-pointers. They said, you're not – Nathaniel Talich, Ryan Stanfley, you're not going to drive in for easy layups. We are not going to give the ball to Lawson Lovering, allow him to get it. And they also rebounded well. They just packed it in. I mean – those top two on the zone were at the elbow most of the time. Now, they knew where the shooters were with the Storbo twins and when Ethan Cates came in, but they dared Central to make 3-pointers, and Central didn't. And Xavier McCord went off. Demetrius McCord actually went out, and his availability for state is in question. He injured his ankle, sprained it really, really bad. So he's in question. He might try to give it a go. Rusty Horsley told me today. Might, but doubtful tomorrow. But Xavier, when he went out, Xavier just took over, and he had 30 points in that. And it was just a steady. They increased the lead every time out. Central would try and make a run. East came back and hit big shots. They made their free throws, and I think Central was suffering from kind of a hangover from the night before still too. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that, and And let's face it, they hadn't suffered through a loss before, other than Scotts Bluff, not to a Wyoming team. I think they were still in shock.
One thing that we've heard about heading into this state tournament is the history behind East and how they don't have the strongest history in the postseason. What makes this team so different that they could be the ones that get the monkey off the back?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. I think the fact that Central's not there helps. In all honesty, I think they knocked out their toughest competition. I don't want to sound arrogant in saying that, but I think we all, and Jake, I think I told you this when you had me on last time.
Yeah.
I think we were all expecting East and Central to be there. And you brought up the fact that we said the same thing with Sheridan last year, and look what happened. Boy, that is a good question, because I've seen really, really, really good East teams. I'll go back to the James Johnson days that didn't win. They won one state title with him there, and he was the best player maybe that's ever played in the state of Wyoming. I know folks will say J.C. Carroll out that way. Yeah,
it's hard to argue either way. I mean, James Johnson is the most athletic guy, though. I mean, he was doing stuff on the basketball court nobody could even dream of at the high school level.
Right, and they won one. It's such a weird deal when you get to Casper, and let's face it, we're talking about teenage kids. I mean, and you just never know how they're going to react. One thing that Rusty Horsley brought up today, they're a senior-laden team. Central was chock full of juniors and a sophomore. That makes a difference at this level. When you have players that you can be talented and all that. Sheridan last year was underclassmen because everybody's back. A lot of the kids are back from that team. And I think that makes a difference, and maybe that'll make a difference this week. But shoot, do you want to play Kelly Walsh in a first-round game? No. We saw what happened 2 years ago when East was the regional champs out of the East and played Kelly Walsh, and were just brutal in that game.
Yeah,
and granted, it was on Kelly Walsh's home court, but still, you should have won the game. I mean, you're a regional champ; you should have beat them. That's a really good question. I think Rusty is a really good coach. These kids have bought in, and I think they're playing well outside of that loss to Campbell, which was inexplicable big. Too. Yeah. That kind of set the tone for the whole weekend. If you think about it, that kind of set the tone. But that's a good question. I just think them being upperclassmen, seniors, is really going to help them these next 3 days.
We've got KFBC Radio's Keith Kelly with us, and we're just talking about the boys for the record. Keith, I have East rolling through, and the recent history, does that give me a little bit of pause? Of course it does, but I think I liked the way that they played in that elimination game against Central. They beat them by 20. They rolled over them, and I think that maybe that loss, which usually comes in tournament time, maybe coming early, was the best thing that could have happened for them. We better switch over to the girls, though. Yeah. And East, Central, and Thunder Basin in that order. Now, in the regular season, Thunder Basin got East and Central, and I was talking to you the week leading up to those games, or I think it was 2 weeks leading up to those games, and I wasn't so sure Thunder Basin wasn't going to take care of both of them. Well, they did, but the second time around, Thunder Basin loses to Central, and then Central, I thought, had that game until Kai Buell and company, and I do think that East girls team has gotten deeper as the year's gone along, comes roaring back, and they're winning. They're the winners of the region title. So 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed goes East, Central, Thunder Basin. But I don't think I know anything more about which order it's going to be by the end of this weekend.
I think, in all honesty, Central losing that game, if you look at the bracket, helped them out. I mean, they got Green River, which is the best team from the West, even though they were knocked off. I mean, guys, think about this. Think about all the upsets we saw last weekend that set these two brackets in just a spiral that we had no idea was going to happen. But if Central can get past Green River, they'll play Natrona or Kelly. They avoid Thunder Basin or East until the championship game. I think they got a break by losing. It's not like they tried to, because they were up in the majority of that game. It's the way Central's playing right now. I really like it. But you brought up East, and you mentioned the name Kai Buell. Against Natrona, she had 4 first-half fouls, plus they ran a box and 1 against her. I think she scored 4 points in that game. Against Central, they ran the diamond in 1 because they wanted to guard the 3-point shooters a little bit more, and she was limited until the fourth quarter in that game. You're exactly right. Maddie Blaney had 27 points against Natrona. In the fourth quarter alone, Emma Jacobson, the junior, had 9 points in the fourth quarter alone, and the freshman, Bowden Liljedahl, scored a majority of her points. I think 10 of her 12 maybe. I don't have the scorebook in front of me. We're in the fourth quarter, and then Kai hit like 6 free throws, I believe. So they are more than just Kai Buell, and that was huge in that regional tournament to develop. And they've been developing depth all year, but to get it in such a key moment, that was big. And Eric Westling was really excited about that. But Central's against Thunder Basin, they held them, and where it changed, they started off man-to-man, and they've been primarily man all year. Against Thunder, they switched to a 2-3 zone in the second quarter. They held Thunder Basin to 3 points in the second quarter, and despite that, they still trailed by 2 at the half. But Glenn Kirkbride told me, he said, we knew we were going to win that game because we were daring them to shoot threes, and they were off that day. And if Thunder Basin's off from three-pointers and they can't drive to the basket, they're in trouble. You can beat them. They're definitely beatable. But I would think that it'll be a little bit different come state tournament time. The cream usually rises to the top, and those players will probably play a little bit differently. But yeah, I think it's a 3-team race for 4A girls. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Thunder Basin, it was the same way they did last year. They're a team that loves every shot they see. And I think they can do that because they know they're going to get more, because it really does all start with that defensive pressure. We've got Keith Kelly of KFBC out of Cheyenne. You're heading over tomorrow. What's your first game?
Central Green River girls, 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
So, and that, I mean, who knows?
That's a good game. Who's got the morning?
I don't know. I know they've already both in Casper. You guys have seen Green River. I have yet to see Green River this year, so I don't know. I know they have 2 really good players in Birch and Heiser. And who knows? I was joking with Glenn Kirkbride. I'm ready for the triangle and 2 from Glenn Kirkbride. That's what I'm ready for. But he didn't really laugh about it. He might do that. You never know.
He might, especially with Green River losing another one of their shooters in Megan Counts. You could see that sort of defense and basically try to force them into it. Keith, we better let you go, but we'll see you over tomorrow, and we'll hopefully be here all weekend doing. I think this is my favorite time of year in Wyoming.
Oh, it's so fun. I can't wait to get up there. The regional tournament was great. We're going to see some upsets and probably see some tomorrow. So I can't wait to get up there, guys. Enjoyed being with you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, Elan, we better take a break here in just a minute. We got a guy who has seen a little bit of the Green River Wolves sitting over to the right of us, Steve Core of KUGR and the Radio Network. He'll be joining us up next. Thoughts on that interview? Any things that stick out to you about those teams, either whether it's East, Central, the thoughts of how everything's going in Cheyenne?
I keep looking at the stats, and I know I've got Green River losing that first one, but when you talk about the fact that it's a 9 a.m. game, that Green River is shooting 44.3%. That is, I mean, Thunder Basin and Green River are the number 1 and number 2 shooting teams in the state. You know, that could flip very, very easily.
Hey, that's why I picked what I'm calling an upset and admitting it, but we'll talk to Steve when a little bit more about that in just a minute's time. This is the 3A, 4A state preview, part of the Wyoming Prep Podcast presented by mylocalradio.com. Here on online, you can watch us live from the Come On In of Casper. We'll be uploading this shortly after we go off air for archiving on the Wyoming Prep Podcast. Or if you're in the Evanston listening area, KNYN 99.1 FM. We'll be right back.
Meet the service and parts department staff at Auto Farm Chevrolet. We work on almost every type of vehicle, foreign and domestic. We also sell parts and accessories for almost all makes and models. Our staff is friendly and well-trained, and we are here to serve you. Open Monday through Friday beginning at 7:30 a.m., we invite you to Auto Farm Chevrolet for all your parts and for all your service needs. 624 Front Street, Evanston. We're a community-driven dealer.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
You're listening to the Wyoming Prep Podcast.
Back here at the Come On In of Casper, live, getting ready for the state tournament to start tomorrow. And joining us over in the shadows over there, Steve Core at KUGR. How you doing, Steve?
Good. I'm doing great.
Hey, so we were just talking with Keith Kelly about the matchup, the 9 a.m. game tomorrow. You've been following Green River for a few years now. How long has it been? When was your first Green River basketball game?
December of 85.
December of 85. My goodness. So a couple games. You've seen a couple.
I've seen a few, yeah.
All right. So 9 a.m. games, they're weird. They can go any way. They can change things, can't
we
they?
We usually play those at 9 a.m. on Friday morning.
The consolation games, yeah. You're not used to playing like an actual championship match.
Right, yeah. It's just coffee in the morning, a little play-by-play with coffee instead of water.
Well, yeah,
I think it's a great matchup. I think Central has got a really good team. They beat Green River earlier this year. In fact, Central scored, 83 points, which I think is the most points scored this year by a girls basketball team.
Yeah, I'd say
so. They came against Green River, and they shot the ball lights out. But I will say this, and you can use this as an excuse, I guess, but Green River played Central on the third day of the tournament in Riverton. You can be tired and all that stuff first week of the season. So I think this will be a lot closer game. I think Green River can win it. Obviously, losing Megan Counts last week is not going to help their cause, but they got a couple of girls that got to step up and play. The Angelovic girl, I think, needs to show up and score some points for Green River. I think Megan was averaging right at 7 or 8 points a game. So you got to have a couple of girls that have got to step up that typically don't score a lot of points, need to score at least the 8 points that Megan usually gives. But where Green River's going to miss Megan Counts is on defense. She got long arms, and she can cause some problems on defense. So, but I'll tell you, I was looking at the career numbers of Ashlyn Birch and Maddie Heiser, and of course the junior Katie Strauss. But those three are the big three. There's no doubt. I think they have to score 15, 18 points apiece if Green River's going to spring the upset. And those three girls have shown it. You guys have seen them play this year. They can do that, and they did that last week in the regional tournament in that game, the play-in, to get to the state basketball tournament with Riverton. Those three girls really showed up big. But I don't know if you know this, but Ashlyn Birch has 1,000 career points. She scored 1,048 in her career. And remember, her junior year, or I guess it was her sophomore year, she got injured and missed several games. So her number's 1,048 points. She's got 963 rebounds. Can she get to 1,000 rebounds? She could this weekend if she plays 3 games and comes in and does her thing. She's 37 away, so she's going to have to average more than what she's averaging now, which is right at 10 rebounds a game. But I think she can do it. And Maddie Heiser last week set all the Green River's career assist records. And believe it or not, Maddie Heiser, and I'm getting this information from Wyoming-football.com where they have the high school basketball records. She's 11 assists away from setting the state record in a season.
About this, we should mention we're on KNY and 99.1 FM. We are at the top of the hour here and joined by Steve Core at KUGR. Elan, take it away.
I think one of the biggest shockers in the regional tournament in Evanston last week was the loss for Green River girls in the semifinals. What exactly happened in that game?
I don't think I'm shocked by that at all. You got to remember, it's Green River Rock Springs, and I've been involved in Green River Rock Springs basketball games since 1986. And Green River won the state basketball championship in 1987. The boys team did, and they rolled everybody, literally rolled everybody except for Rock Springs. And it was the only loss they had that season. They went 23-1 and got beat in the final regular season game in Rock Springs. Green River did get even with them at the regional tournament and again at the state basketball tournament. But so when Green River Rock Springs get together, earlier this year Green River won by 3 over in Rock Springs. They won by 10 in Green River. So no, I was not surprised. And Brindley Jenkins is the real deal.
Yeah.
She's a sophomore. I think she scored 27 on Green River, 28 points against Green River last week in the regional tournament. I was not shocked by that. I was a little surprised. I thought Green River would get an opportunity to play Kelly Walsh, which they have not played yet. But I'll tell you this, guys, the winner of the game tomorrow between Green River and Central will play in the state championship game. Kelly Walsh and Natrona is not going to beat the winner.
Yeah,
I think the winner of that game tomorrow goes to the finals.
I'm with you.
Now, can they win it? I don't know, but you never know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and that's why I have, when I had Green River pulling off that upset, I have them going all the way to the state championship. You mentioned the Rock Springs game, and I've seen my fair share of those games play out as well. So it is really one of those throw out the record book sort of situations.
It really is.
But there's more to it than that because Rock Springs is a legitimate good team. And really on the west side, that was kind of a matchup difficulty for such a defensively driven team. You mentioned Brenley Jenkins. She's obviously the real deal. And just a sophomore. Can you imagine if Kai Buell and Brenley were on the same team?
It'd be scary is what it would be. Yeah, that's
that
for
would
sure.
be your that'd be your state favorite right there.
Really scary. I think Brenley Jenkins needs to move to Green River next year and help the Lady Wolves out, because the Lady Wolves are going to be pretty salty next year. They've got that's really kind of a young team. They do lose Birch and Heiser, but Brenley, that's my shout out to you. Move to Green River.
Hey,
it's only 15 miles.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I saw this Green River team go from what we'd call a scrappy bunch of girls that really couldn't pull together a win to being the region favorites all year long. And, yeah, sure, they fell to Rock Springs, but that is an unfortunate matchup. How did they do that? Because 3 years ago when they were playing as sophomores, they were not this sort of team. They've just developed and grown together.
Well, you got to give a little bit of credit to the head coach, Rick Carroll. I mean, this is his 29th year as a head coach in Green River. He just recently coached his 700th game. You think about how many bus miles that is, 700 basketball games he's coached. Won his 300th. And what's interesting is if they win tomorrow, it'll be his 200th win as a Green River girls basketball coach. He's sitting at 199, and I think he's his 15th year as the head coach there. You got to give Rick and his staff a lot of credit. This is a good basketball team. It's they're 21-5.
Yeah.
And granted, the 5 losses are against the teams that are sitting here in the state basketball tournament, and they got to be able to overcome that. And I don't count them out. I think this will be a good game tomorrow.
9 a.m. game. You never know what's going to happen. If I could, I'd like to switch the gears to the boys' side. The boys play Thunder Basin tomorrow. What needs to happen in order for you guys to pull off the upset, you feel like?
Well, I thought I wrote those numbers down. I didn't bring them with me, but I was reading the numbers today. They've shot 843s.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Something like that. It's crazy
it's
number.
in the high 700s, and I think it's probably in the 800s because I didn't have the regional stats. But 65% of their shots.
I think I read 840. I read the regional stats.
65% of their shots are from beyond the arc.
Yeah, and the bottom line is if Thunder Basin goes cold, and Green River plays some pretty good perimeter defense. You've seen Green River play. They're scrappy.
Oh, yeah.
They're a scrappy bunch.
Yep.
And Lori's got them playing hard. It would be a monumental upset if they were to pull this off tomorrow. There is no doubt about it. I'm not saying that. But do they have a shot? That's why you play the basketball game.
You're always out there. That's the theme of what I'm saying. When I was looking at the Douglas Bearcats, the girls certainly led by Allison Fertig. Yeah, primed to win their 3rd in a row. But you're playing a game, and I think after last week's regional tournament, it shows there are no guarantees. Right. And I kind of want to ask you about that. It's the conversation of the week. Is there need to be any changes?
The best team in Class 4A is not here.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I think Central's the best team. We saw Central early in Casper, and they beat Green River by 41 or 42 points at Natrona County Gym. I mean, it was like machine. It's like I even think I said on the air that if they don't win the state basketball championship, they got to look at the head coach. And I'm not saying here right now that that's what they need to do. But that was just a figure of speech. I'm not calling for Tag to be ousted by any means, but they're that good. And yes, they need to do. And I had a chance to talk with a gentleman that's got some pretty good power in the Wyoming High School Activity Association today. He's on the board, and I won't mention his name because I think it was kind of a private conversation. But I said, you got to go back to 12. You got to go 12 or do 5 classifications. Go to 900 and above is your big classification. 900 to 500 is your next classification. And there's nothing wrong with having odd number teams in a classification. There's nothing wrong. We can work with that. Yeah. You don't have to have 12, 12, 12, and 12. If you got 12, 11, and 9, and 13, or whatever the number is. But they've got to get back to where the regular season means something. If you're Cheyenne Central, your regular season meant nothing.
That's where I'm at,
meant
too.
nothing. In my opinion, that has to mean something. If you finish as a conference champ or you finish 1-2 like they used to do, you automatically qualify for state. That means it meant something. And I think you won't see what we saw last week where your best team is not here.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at, too. I give so much credit to what Thunder Basin did and then what East did. It is not easy to play a 1 o'clock loser-out game to a team that just pummeled you the first 2 times, just dominated you, and then win by 20. I give all the credit in the world to that. However, should that have even been the situation, or should Central, as we saw in the years past, the top 2 teams got to buy into state, the regular season should mean something more than just a 1 seed. And I think with 3 teams being number 1s and all being not at state this year, we may see something come out of that.
Right. And, the superintendents across the Cowboy State, Yeah, and you guys know I'm on the school board in Green River, and I know that class time and I know out of class time and travel is important and all of that. But I think when they went to 16, their argument was we needed less travel time and we needed more class time. So what happens today in Casper, Wyoming? We're at the state cheer competition that started at 2 o'clock, and the cheer teams, most of them came down yesterday.
Yeah.
Spent the night. And probably will spend the night tonight because it's going to be a late event out at the Casper Event Center. So don't give me the out-of-school time and don't give me the travel time, because if you work it right, you can make the schedule work travel-wise. You really can. Green River in football, we got to go play Cody and Powell. That's not an easy trip.
Yeah.
That's just not an easy trip for Green River. And so in basketball, I am advocating they need to go to the south-north configuration. The Cheyenne schools, Laramie, Green River, Rock Springs, Evanston, the way it used to be, and do a top 2 teams in your regular season automatically qualify for state. Then we're not talking about Cheyenne Central not being here.
Yep.
Because they'd be here.
Yep.
And we'd have our best team here.
Yep.
And so that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. I think that it's a shame that the top teams aren't there. But just playing devil's advocate with
love it. Let's argue. Love it.
There we go.
With the current system in place, you have to lose 2 games in order to get eliminated. What are the chances that a top team like Central loses those 2 games?
Just happened.
Well,
I know, but going into it, what are the chances?
Okay, well,
of that?
then here's where
But you eliminate that chance by allowing
doing
the
that.
regular season champion qualify for state.
And
you eliminate that scenario.
Here's where things get a little murky, because it's all on the number 1 seed, or in this case, Cheyenne East. The second you flip those brackets, because the idea of this double elimination bracket as it stands is these upper seeds are going to win the first game, and then the lower seed will lose in the semifinals, but they'll play one of those bottom couple of teams in a loser-out matchup. However, when you have a team like East losing match 1 to Campbell County, and I think we've all seen our fair share of Campbell County upsets, saw a great one last year, then that flips the bracket. So on day 3, we have East versus Central, and only one goes in. I was more familiar in regionals on the 3A West in Lyman when Mountain View was upset by Lovell on day 1. Then on day 3, we had a loser-out game, Big Piney versus Mountain View, and they were supposed to be on the opposite ends playing Lovell and Powell, which now we have a 3 seed with, I think, 7 wins in, and hey, great for them. They showed up at the tournament, and so I can go both ways because, yeah, I think the regular season should mean something, but I don't want to take anything away from a team that pulls off a Cinderella run like they did.
I guess what my point is we talked about it earlier. You talked about how if we were to go to a 16-team tournament, then it would be one of those things where you could get that. It'd come down to 1 game, and if you have one bad night,
you're talking about if
out.
we do 1 versus 16,
if we do 1 versus,
well,
let's say
two to conferences, 1 versus
yeah,
yeah. We did that one year. We had every team in the Class 4A was at the state basketball tournament.
Yeah,
we did that. That we've tried that and it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that if you have, let's say, a 1 versus 8, let's say an 8 wins, that means you only had 1 bad night. At least with the way things currently are, you have to have 2 bad nights. It gives you a chance to kind of bounce back. Is it a complete shame that we had 2 of the best 2 teams lose out on the first night? Yeah, but that's also kind of what happens. And again, I don't know what the solution is, but I'm just playing devil's advocate, and that's kind of, I think, what the idea was. What the question is whether it's being executed that well enough. I don't know.
Yeah, and I can say, I'm with you on that side. I think that the regular season should mean something.
Yeah.
So if there were any changes, I think, like Steve said, you would have to go back to 12. But I don't want this to dominate that conversation.
No.
But I think you're with that.
You have to reconfigure, because I'm telling you right now, Star Valley's got a great basketball team.
Yeah,
they do.
I think one of you guys picked them. They will not win the state tournament. They're not going to win it. They don't have the depth to do it against schools like East and Casper, Kelly Walsh, and some of those the 2 Gillette schools. So you got right now in the 16 teams, you got Cody, Riverton, Star Valley, Green River, Jackson. They are not going to win the boys basketball tournament. Not going to happen. Now, can the Green River girls win it this year? I don't know. But
if they can get past round 1, then there's a path.
But they still have to beat East or Thunder Basin in the finals, who I think is going to meet in the other semifinal, by the way, on the girls' side.
Yeah.
But so what I'm saying is, you're telling Jackson and Green River and Star Valley and Cody and Riverton, you can play each other in football. It's okay. Go play each other in football. But now you got to go play Thunder Basin and Sheridan and those other schools in basketball. this is such an easy fix, but as long as you have 19 Wyoming High School Activity Association board members that represent all the different classifications, they're going to protect what's good for their classification, and the heck with the other classification. They don't care. But those are the 19 people you got to convince to change the way they're doing this thing, and I think it's going to be very difficult to get it changed.
Nonetheless, I love the way that the boys bracket stacks out now. Yeah, sure, we don't have Central, but we got what we have going forward, and I think it's going to be crazy the next 3 days.
I agree with you.
I think
it is what it is.
Exciting. Yeah.
We're dealing with what it is today and the tournament, and you can't take anything away from a team like Green River going to the state basketball tournament. They earned it at the regionals. They got it done. And the system that they play under, they did it what they needed to do. Cheyenne Central did not.
Yes.
Under the system, and I agree with what you say. They had 2 chances to get this done, and they didn't get it done. And they went in at 19-1 and hadn't lost to a Wyoming team. They had their opportunities and didn't get it done under the system we do. Now, can the system be tweaked? I think it should be tweaked, and that's for discussion down the road, I guess.
So, real quick question. You say cutoff at 900. So, where would that cutoff be at 4A as it stands right now? 500, sorry.
Yeah, I would go 900 and above, or 950, whatever the number is, 900 and above.
Wherever Sheridan's at.
Because
they can compete at 4A.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're at 950. Where's Evanston at?
They're below. They're sitting in the high 700s.
They would be. They'd go down in that system.
Down. So, that's all I'm saying. And I don't care if it's an odd or an even number. People get hooked up on this even odd. If you have 11 teams, you can work with 11 teams. You just got to figure it out. You can do it.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
That's Steve Core of KUGR, the radio network. You got a 9 a.m. game tomorrow. Green River versus East. Central.
And then we have Thunder Base and Green River at 1:30.
Yep.
Casper
so you got
College.
2 games. You'll be done by 3 o'clock. And, hey, Green River, you mentioned this. Dylan Taylor, just a sophomore. The value for this young Green River team, it may not be their year this year, but the value of this team to get into the state tournament this year
huge.
Can be big.
It's huge. Let's face it. We have a senior that we lean on a little bit in Drew Gibson. Mm-hmm. I know Michael Richardson's a starter. Isaac Ruiz doesn't play much. Those are the seniors. And so you obviously got to replace Drew Gibson. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying you don't. But what they've got coming back next year, and they've got some sophomores that are on the cusp of being very good basketball players. Lori Ivy's got this program in the right direction.
So you think
proud of her.
So you think that they have pieces to build around Dylan?
They do. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
And I agree. I love what Lori's done. It's been a different take, too. It's not been by any means a conventional basketball system with what they have.
You got to remember, she took over a program that was 0-58.
Exactly.
58 straight losses they had when she took over the program. They only won 4 games, I think, her first year, but they did get some wins. And she's since taken the program and took a big hit 3 years ago. I mean, this really should be the 3rd straight year Green River's going to the state tournament. 3 years ago, they lost in the first round in Jackson against Casper Natrona, a team that they had beaten earlier in the season. And they didn't get it done, and it was a bummer. So really, she's done a great job with the program.
Yeah, looking forward to more years with her and Rick Carroll as well. I love getting to catch up with that guy every time because.
I think he'll come back one more year.
He better come back another 5.
It'll be his 30th year next year, and that's a nice round number. And he's been to the state championship game twice, lost it both times in 96 and 97. Mm-hmm. And the 96 team was undefeated. They were 23-0 and got beat by Gillette in the championship game. So he's been to the state basket. He's been to the big prize. He just hasn't grabbed the big prize. So he knows how to get there.
Hey, if he can get there this year, it'd be a good run. And he's got the team to have a chance to win. They're one of those 4 teams I can see doing it.
Definitely.
Steve Core with the Radio Network. Thanks so much for joining us.
I took way too much of your time.
No, you're actually right on schedule. Believe it or not, I got a format right in front of me.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's cool that you do this because it's where we've gone in this business since I got into the business way back in the 80s is cool, and that thing right there is where it's headed. And it's a little difficult for me to admit that, but that's where it's going, and I enjoy doing play-by-play in sports, and but that's where it's going. Where you guys are on the cusp of where this is all headed.
Well, we appreciate it, and we will be right back in just a minute's time to close out this show live from the Come On In of Casper. It's the 3A 4A state tournament preview.
It's human nature to think the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That's not always true, especially when it comes to buying vehicles. This is Dennis Lynch, General Manager at Auto Farm Chevrolet. Dealerships pay the same price for new vehicles across America. The fact is, the best deals are right here, in your own backyard. The difference is that our employees are your neighbors, people you can trust. Please visit us first, Auto Farm Chevrolet. We are your community-driven dealer.
Folks have many reasons to visit Casper, Wyoming every year, whether it's work, high school sports and activities, a romantic getaway, or business meetings. The best place to stay when you're in Casper is the Come On In Hotel and Suites. A beautiful log hotel offers 5 hot tubs, a pool, fitness center, and a fabulous indoor atrium. You can also reserve meeting rooms for your next event, and each stay includes an extended continental breakfast. Reserve your rooms today at the Come On In Hotel and Suites in Casper, Wyoming. Call 307-472-6300.
You're listening to the Wyoming Prep Podcast.
Never had a love about you. Confuse other people walking as you go. Yeah.
Appreciate Steve Cord joining us out of the break now. Back here at the final segment of the Wyoming Prep Podcast State Preview, presented by MyLocalRadio.com. Elan, you hit the wires.
I know now we're having a hard time hearing ourselves, but
that's all right.
Still putting on a good show.
So here, I also mentioned Steve Cord was inducted into the Hall of Fame for the Wyoming Association of Broadcasters. I was at that banquet. I saw that happen. I saw the induction, but thanks to Val Cook back in running the board for us, reminding me of that. Well, we are at the point where we've got a little bit of free time. And
finally,
I would like to go back to one of your picks. You mentioned Steve Cord mentioned this. He doesn't think a team from the West can take it. I'm with him. I don't think they have the depth. Most namely, I want you to defend yourself with the Evanston-Sheridan pick in light of Evanston not having their best, one of their best players in Dawson Crofts. I shouldn't say that because Mason Ellingford, Burke Thomas, all those guys, great. But one of their is he their leading scorer at the very least?
Mason's their leading scorer, but Dawson is probably their best. No, Mason is their leading scorer throughout the entire thing.
I'm saying like in conference.
In conference, yeah, Dawson's been the guy because they've been translating more to an outside offense. Here's what I think. I think Evanston is one of the few teams that can match the size of Sheridan. You've got Mason Ellingford, who's 6'5". You got Wade Bowen, who's, depending on who you ask, 6'9", 6'10", 6'11". I've seen it listed 3 different times in 3 different programs. And also, there's a guy on there that we don't talk about who I think is a defensive X factor. Casey Perriman.
Okay.
And I like. I've heard what the plan is. I like the plan, and I think it'll work. I know what Evanston's looking for, and I will say that I think they're going to need to be able to dominate the defensive boards, which during the entire regular season that does go to Sheridan, but Evanston has slowly been creeping up there, especially in the region season. I think they're number 3 in defense in the region season at this point, and if they can win the defensive boards, if they can get Mason to establish some presence in the post, and they can also get not big nights, but significant nights from Burke Thomas and David Baxter on the outside, I think they can pull off the upset.
Okay, here's where I think it's going to be. The theme for me is I'm not going to say anything definitively. Anything is possible in this state tournament.
Yeah, as we saw last weekend.
So I'm not ruling anything out. Here's where I think the matchup is going to be tough, because the first time that these two teams played, Evanston shot all right, and I was looking over this. They really didn't have a bad game. They shot 44% from 3. That's as good as they've shot all season from beyond the arc. They shot 50% from inside the arc. Here's the problem, and here's where I think it would come down to. You mentioned the boards. Offensive glass is going to be as important because Sheridan's going to dominate that, and they have all season. They out-rebounded Evanston in the offense 9-1, and they won the overall rebounding battle by 9. And the turnovers was 19-10, and that's where I think you're going to have to if they're going to have to first have their big shooting, but they're going to have to take away those turnovers, and they're going to have to I don't think they can win that rebounding battle, but they're going to have to limit the turnovers, and then we're talking about a shot. But hey, it's state. Everyone's got a shot. Switching over to maybe...
May I say one thing?
All right.
So there's 2 things different about this game coming up. Number one, that was in the middle of their 0-11 streak where they were trying to figure...
Playing Eastern teams, though. Their winning streak comes against Western teams.
It was on a 3rd day of a tournament as well in Cheyenne.
Okay.
And they did not have Braxton Lind.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But they don't have Dawson Crofts this time around, and that is a big,
It's a big
miss.
loss. He went off
So,
for 19 points
anyways,
in that game. I'm not going to lie.
Moving on to some of the other matchups on the boys side, day one. Just take a quick look up at these brackets one last time. Pulling yours up. East versus Kelly Walsh at noon. East has been upset. We heard from Keith Kelly at the beginning of the hour, I guess sometime in the middle of the hour. East has been want to not show up at state tournaments. I think that might change differently. And one thing that he said is something that I held on to as well, is that this East team that has kind of become known as, well, what will they do in tournaments? That was when these kids were freshmen, sophomores, juniors. They're now seniors, and they've got a year under their belt. I think the problem last year was that they did not have enough time to come together, with Graydon Buell coming in from Rock Springs to East and trying to mesh with all that. Eric Oliver, of course, a big miss for them, but that's maybe opened up the floor for a lot of other guys. And that's why I think East will come away with that first-round victory over Kelly Walsh, because conversely, Kelly Walsh has not replaced what they had last year when they won a state title. They have 3 guys at that 10-point-per-game average, but who's the go-to guy? And I don't think they've been able to answer that question all year long. And on top of that, I don't think they can match up size-wise. Now, Kelly Walsh has pulled off upset after upset after upset. So with Coach Roden and his bunch, you know they're always going to be in there. But that's why I have East in that first-round game.
The one thing that might concern you a little bit, and I saw it when you mentioned it. I saw the look on your face. The injury to Demetrius McCord. Yes, he's not as productive as his brother.
Well, but
he's a big part of that team.
He's a big part of the team, yeah, and that does matter. But if that injury matters, then Dawson's injury certainly matters as well. And I think that it's just too bad it's having guys get injured at a regional tournament, because especially when they're seniors, like both of those two young guys are. You play all these years. You grow up playing in the back of your gym. I guess if you have a gym, if you got a really nice house, but on your blacktop, pretending to be in the state tournament as a senior, and just to not see either one of those guys get that opportunity just breaks my heart. We don't know if Demetrius will be able to go or not, but probably not tomorrow.
And as you say, we don't know if Demetrius will get that opportunity or not. But we do know Dawson won't. Yeah. And I tell you what, my heart breaks for that kid. And the one thing that I think should give a lot of Evanston fans hope is the way that Evanston responded in a back and forth game after Dawson went down. They came together to get past Rock Springs. They were actually down when Dawson went down. They were down in that game, and they were able to kind of rebound. Big game from Casey Perriman, Burke Thomas, and David Baxter. And Braxton Lynn was just a defensive monster that entire game. But you talk about how big that injury is, and we're harping on it a little bit, and it's the team that I know the best by far because it's the team I cover. But it's a big loss, but I don't think it's as detrimental as it would be if they lost, let's say, an Ellingford or someone like that.
I have to disagree with you there, but we'll have to leave it right there. We have we're 2 broadcasters doing games. We've heard from Keith Kelly, Steve Core. There are a couple more broadcasters doing around the state. We want you to go out and support local radio.
Yeah.
We have the situation like it is. Obviously, we're able to stream this pre-show. We're not able to stream games tomorrow because the state has locked us out and said you are not allowed to. And, they're not the ones who are going around traveling across the state, covering games all year long. There's guys all around from each town in Wyoming who have hundreds of thousands of miles on their cars because they've followed these teams around. And as we exit out, we collected some guys who you can go and listen to their games. This is free. You can go listen to basketball, and it's a great thing because you get to paint the picture in your head.
And this is also members of your community. This is people who have formed relationships with the teams, with the coaches, and with you. And it's something that I know as a broadcaster in Evanston, I know that I've got people listening to me, and I greatly appreciate that they're taking the time to tune into me and to hear my call of the game.
And I had 2 guys who I recorded, but I don't know what happened. They didn't come out, so I should mention Michael Noseep of KLOV in Lander and Chance Bond of KWOR in Worland. Both those guys have stations that will be on wyopreps.com tomorrow, where you can go click and listen live for free to Lander and Worland contests. But here's some more guys around the state for this week at state tournament.
This is Keith Kelly with KFBC Sports Radio in Cheyenne. You can listen to all Cheyenne high school hoops games here at the 4A state tournament by going to our website, kfbcradio.com, clicking the Listen Live link, or on our KFBC mobile app.
Hey, this is Dennis Switzer from 100.1 FM KKTY in Douglas. We are proud to stream the Douglas Lady Cats basketball team looking for their third straight state championship. You'll hear the game streaming at kktyonline.com.
Hi, this is Steve Core, voice of the Green River Wolves. You can catch all of the Green River games on KUGR and also streamed at theradionetwork.net.
You can catch the Rock Springs Tigers on KREO Radio, 93.5 FM, 307country.com. I'm Blaine Myers with all the action for the Tiger squads.
Hi, this is Joey Savarine, the Rollins Outlaw broadcaster, and you can listen to Outlaw Basketball from Bigfoot99.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Brentel with the Basin Radio Network up here in Gillette, and we have your Gillette basketball covered. On News Radio 106.7 and 1270 KIML, you can hear all the action for the Thunder Basin Bolts. On 97.3 Camel FM, you can hear all the action for the Campbell County Camels. Join us this weekend.
This is Ryan Caith with KGOS KERM Radio, and you can hear all the Torrington Trailblazer games on our website at KGOSKERM.com. Tim Hurst with the call.
This is Brady Safranik with KBBS, and you can catch Buffalo Bison basketball on 1450 AM and 103.5 FM KBBS and online at BighornMountainRadio.com.
This is Duke Dance and Dal Erickson at SVI Media.
You can listen to Star Valley games at SVInews.com.
And this is Elan Olliff, and you can catch all the Evanston Red Devil boys games here at the state tournament on KNYN 99.1 FM in the Evanston listening area, as well as online at mylocalradio.com.
I'm Jake Hibbard with MyLocalRadio.com. Mountain View and Lyman games covered for you this weekend on KADQ 98.3 in the Uinta County listening area, or anytime with that audio stream in the scoreboard running clock on MyLocalRadio.com. Thanks so much for tuning in through this 90-minute program. Happy to do it, and we're excited for the 3A, 4A girls and boys state playoffs starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't miss it. We'll see you then.
This is the Wyoming Prep Podcast on the radio.